and as it is 7 o'clock, I will call the Topsfield School Committee meeting to order for April 2nd. We will start with introductions, starting to my right.
Keith Greenberg, Assistant Superintendent of Operations.
Scott Morrison, Superintendent.
Matt LaCavra, Assistant Superintendent of Student Services.
Colleen Anderson, Recording Secretary.
Andrew Prazar, School Committee Chair.
Alyssa Gustin, School Committee.
Brendan Gahagan, School Committee.
Carol Wall, Principal at Steward.
Adrian Alford, Interim Principal, Proctor.
And Candace sends her regards. She is sick, and Emily, I think, will be joining us later. Are there any remarks from the public?
This is the public comment section.
Yes, it's the public comment section.
One person that signed up.
That's quite all right. So yes, come to the microphone, introduce yourself,
Okay.
and then you've got 3 minutes.
3 minutes, yeah.
It shouldn't take that long. I'm Emily Ween, 32 Averill Street. I've got a first grader and a third grader at Steward right now. And I just wanted to kind of come and talk very briefly, not 3 minutes long, hopefully, just about a before school program at Proctor, because I know that's on the agenda for tonight. I have been utilizing the Steward Station before school program for 4 years since my son started kindergarten. My husband and I are both educators, and our schools start before Topsfield schools. So I just wanted to kind of put that plug in that there's a number of families in town that would really benefit from a before school program at Proctor. Firsthand, you know, I've spoken to a lot of families that have students now at Proctor that have struggled this year. Some have gone through 6 babysitters, elderly grandparents, neighbors. So it's just been, it's a big stressor on families to try to find before school care. And I know we're a small town, so we don't necessarily have huge numbers. But we did send out a survey to families, and we had 13 kids that would want a before school program at Proctor next year, and 9 of them would be 3 to 5 days a week. So I know we've looked into the past about getting the Y program up and running, so hopefully that can be something that can be opened up and discussed again. You know, we've talked, one of the other mothers that I've been talking with and collaborating with has talked to the Y, and so hopefully that can be something that we gets in motion, because it'll be paid for by only by the families that use it, and I know it's been successful in other neighboring towns like Georgetown. So if that is just something that we could discuss and support, then that would be a real big stress relief for me going into summer. So that would be much appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments from the public? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the report of the superintendent.
Great. Good evening, everybody. Good to see you all. A couple of updates from my neck of the woods. It's just the window project. We will just continue to keep that on there. Every agenda, just as a reminder, that SOI will open in 27. And so when that does open, and I think, Andrew, either you or I, or you and I together had a conversation with Kevin about it too.
Yes, when I had a conversation with him recently, he's like, just remind me of that number again.
Right.
I'm like, so we'll get that number to you.
Yes, exactly. But just something that we want to just keep on the radar, so we keep saying it out loud. And again, that would be a partnership for the windows here at Proctor, particularly the Georgian building up front. So more to come on that. Proctor Principal search update. Just wanted to congratulate publicly Adrian for becoming our permanent Proctor School Principal. So congratulations to Adrian for sure.
Steve started that clap.
He did?
Yeah.
Huh? What?
What does he want? Right? But we congratulate Adrian going through the process. We had a good opportunity to connect with many stakeholders as we went through that process, and it was a very thorough interview process as well. And Adrian's background and experiences are a good match for us here at Proctor School, and we're happy he's on board. And I know he's excited about, you know, getting a formal entry plan up and running now that he is the permanent person, surveying community staff, having all those conversations, and looking ahead as to what our goals and objectives can be here at Proctor School in the years ahead. So much more to come on that as we navigate in the months ahead, but just wanted to formally recognize and thank Adrian for committing to us here at Proctor School as well, because as I always say, it's a two-part endeavor, right? We want the person to be here, and we want the person wants to be here, and that's certainly the case here with this Proctor search. So again, thank you, and formally a welcome to Adrian, even though he's been here in the interim role since the beginning of this past school year. Previous meeting minutes, as we start to do some cleaning at central office, we've been coming across some fascinating documents, and these are meeting minutes from 1934 and 1935. It's remarkable when you think about it. And someday, 100 years from now or 90 years from now, somebody will be looking at our drive, if that's even still a thing 90 years from now, and looking at our minutes and going, you know, how the heck did they, or why the heck did they do the minutes? They were all handwritten in beautiful script. They're fascinating to read. This was from, this meeting was February 17th of 1942, and there was a big concern about milk, and that the refrigerator needs to be replaced because the milk is being left at school every other day. It was voted to have Mrs. Woodbury talk with Mr. Gorman with regard to the ice box and getting more ice for the ice box to keep everything cold. This meeting was very interesting because it adjourned at 11:15 p.m. I don't think that's a record we ever want to break.
Wow.
Many of the meetings were at someone's house, so it would be like, the meeting was at Mr. Prezar's house, and it started at 8 o'clock and went to 11:15, and this one's from 1945, and Steve Greenberg's mentioned in this one, which is fascinating. quite fascinating. But bills and payrolls were approved, teacher contracts were signed, someone was reelected as janitor. So again, just interesting read. We've been kind of poking through them. This one was from 1948. Release time during school hours, programming for 5th and 6th grade kids. I mean, it's an interesting sort of trip back in time if anyone does want to take a look at them. But we found one for Middleton from 1907, I think, as well. And Brian Milton Cox had read through them, more deeply, and he was saying that it's fascinating how much things have stayed the same, like having difficulty finding custodians, and the budget is difficult, and all these things. It was like, okay, these could have been written now. So anyway, just wanted to bring that to your attention as we uncover some of that old history. It is fun to kind of go back and take a look at it and remind ourselves of where we started. Annual town meeting is the 5th for Topsfield. That is a Tuesday, first Tuesday. Yeah, first Tuesday in May. I get my towns confused sometimes. First Tuesday in May, and that will have a 7 o'clock start at Masco for the elementaries. Not a lot on the warrant, other than the articles around capital. And we have a capital article as it relates to the gym painting and the gym mats. And then we also have a couple of articles reallocating money that was sent back to the town last year for free cash to go into the special ed reserve, into the special ed stabilization accounts. So should be relatively quiet for the elementary schools at town meeting.
And then both of those are part of consent agendas,
hopefully.
I think.
Yeah, hopefully. I think they are going to try the consent process this year, which will be interesting. And then town election is on May the 7th, and we have one open seat, two open seats.
One candidate.
One candidate, right. So Alyssa, you are running again, which is great. Thank you very much. And we're sad to see Emily maybe not running again. So we'll have 2 open seats for that, and that will all happen on the 7th. I do love that Topsfield does it that way. The other 2 towns, it's a week later. So you have town meeting, and then it's the next Tuesday is the town election. I do love that Topsfield, it's that Thursday. Everything's kind of known in that same week in terms of votes and ballots and overrides and all that jazz. So and the other 2 towns, Boxford and Middleton, the town meetings are on the 12th, and then the elections are on the 19th, and the ballots are on the 19th. So it goes a little bit further into May. So with that, happy to take any questions on any of those items. Our main docket tonight is the public hearing on budget and school choice.
I'll just make a plea to anyone who's interested in running for that other seat in school committee. I am happy to talk to you. We're very nice people for the most part. It is. It's, I won't lie. There's some work involved, but it's a good group to work with. So if anyone knows of anyone who wants to mount a writing campaign, I'm happy to talk to anyone who wants to talk about it. I actually spoke with someone tonight, but
Awesome.
He's unfortunately too busy, but was very interested and may be someone down the line
Great.
we can tap. So
Perfect. Thank you very much.
all right, moving on to the financial reports.
Good evening, everyone. What's concluding the drive is the April financial report for your review and information. Everything is moving along quite nicely. We're really heading into the last quarter, if you will, of the fiscal year. So when we get to the May school committee meeting, we'll be coming back to the school committee with recommendations for closeout. So it'll be the usual process where we'll look at our total operation, and there'll be a recommendation for closeout at the discretion of the superintendent in consultation with the school committee chair. But this year, there's nothing extraordinary. We are still probably looking at a couple of minor things, if you will, but overall, I think this budget will end well. So I will stop talking and answer any questions the committee may have about any specifics.
Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
On to the principal's report.
Great, thank you. So ours is a little bit long, so we'll be brief, but if you want to review it in the drive, just because we didn't present in March. So thank you to Stewart Grade 3 Student Council and Angie Weiler, who runs the Student Council. She does an absolutely amazing job. She has almost 60 of the 72 third graders. So we did a food pantry drive. It was a huge success, 450 items. So thank you to all those families that donated. Stewart participated in a staff swap. It was awesome, the Friday before February vacation. And so we just got over the loudspeaker and said, okay, everybody switch. So they, Donna Sewell got to be the nurse. I got to be in the front office. Preschool went everywhere. So it was just great to see the kids kind of react to new staff members and the staff to be in different environments. It was actually really fun, I think. Thanks to Paige Roboto for a Stewart archaeological dig and also volcanoes in 2nd and 3rd grade. We just found the last dinosaur last week after all the snow melted, but it was great. She had plots set out for all the kids and they had to dig, and then some of them decided to throw them elsewhere appropriately to rehide them, and they took a little bit longer to find. So preschool did a nice job on their walks gathering the rest of the dinosaurs. Preschool has hatched chicks in the classrooms, in the Amy Beckwith's classroom. And then it's also been just a whole preschool experience because a lot of the kids come before school or after school. Sometimes I get to teach before and after school, and it's always fascinating to see the chicks in the morning. Carlos is currently my favorite, and also a little bit of a bully, but he's learning to get along with everybody else. But Amy and Jackie also opened up the chicks to everybody else in the school and have done little presentations, so all of the kids throughout Stewart have enjoyed them. Read Across America month was the whole month of March, so Wally from the Red Sox came to kick off the month, and a huge thank you to Caitlin Moses for setting that up, and our Read Across America crew who did lots of events throughout. Unfortunately, many of you were supposed to be our guest readers, but the snow canceled that for us, so if you're ever bored and would like to come to read at any of our classrooms, just call us and we'll find a group of kids to read to. We did relationship mapping in our March faculty meeting, so that's really about tethering students to adults and making sure everybody has an adult that they feel connected to, either at Stewart or an adult at home they feel connected to. I didn't share any of the pictures that were drawn of myself, but I'm very reflective on some of them. But it's always awesome to see the kids, and they pretty easily come up with lots of different staff members, not only their classroom teachers, but the 3 examples are an instructional assistant, our school psychologist, and the nurse, Mrs. Buff. The Geo Days have been fantastic in the cafeteria. So today was another Geo Day from India, and tons of, I think they made like 30 extra bagels just in case it was a little too spicy, and we didn't get any returns. And so that's been a good experience. So thank you to Whitson's in the cafeteria, and I guess Greenberg for organizing that.
Sorry, I forgot something. First of all, good evening. Thank you again for having me back. It's been a wonderful experience. I'm truly thankful to be coming back. So thank you all for the opportunity, and I look forward to hopefully years to come, including Steve Greenberg. I look forward to working with him as well. I totally forgot to add in, so my apologies, the spelling bee. We had a spelling bee, and it was our first one, and I thought it went so well. A little bit of a mic issue, didn't realize that both mics were on the same feed, so like Dr. Morrison went to talk, and then the kid went to, and then it wasn't working out, but it was a big success. So Mrs. Givas had a great lesson in her class. She has many of them, but this one in particular was Literature Inspires Art in Mrs. Givas' class. So I'm going to hand this out as an example.
Thank you.
But kids were using some form of artwork to kind of express what they're reading, and that was just one example that happened in her class. I thought that one was outstanding. The creativity, the work that went into it. And then there's some other pictures as a classroom. You can see they're really proud of it. Miss Roboto, also with 5th grade, did a river walk, and that's them having like a hands-on quality, like water testing quality. The kids really enjoyed it. They were not too cold, and they didn't fall into the water, which is a big success. So, and we're also pairing with Town Hall to go to the water treatment facility soon, so that as another hands-on activity, and it's kind of that real-world application. They can see that water just boop, right there and you drink it. And then it's been kindness week. Student ambassadors in 6th grade this week have been going around and kind of giving kindness spirit. So one example is a there's a booth where you could take a compliment and give a compliment. Or the student ambassadors have been putting clothespins on lockers, kind of with inspirational things on it. One of the clips you'll see is "You Slay." I got that one, which I was like, yeah, I like that. And then Mrs. Gibbous again had a fantastic door. So the kids did a really nice job, and outside of that, I also have 2 checks that people want to remain anonymous for, but that's going to the 6th grade student activities account.
Gifts and grants.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions?
That's great.
Thank you. Look at that. Moving on to gifts and grants.
Exactly.
So we do need to know the dollar amounts.
500 and 160.
All right. And you said to this 6th grade student activity fund?
Yep.
All right, so I will make a motion to accept a check for $500 from an anonymous donor to the 6th grade student activity fund.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great if someone opposed that. And I'll make a motion to accept a donation for $160 from an anonymous donation or donor, also to be assigned to the 6th grade student activity fund.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Any other gifts and grants? Is that it? All right, moving on to the YMCA before and after school program.
Excellent. So in the drive, there is a PDF that we'll come back to in a minute, and that's a PDF that we received from our colleagues and friends at the Y. But just prior to that, just for committee members that may not have been here during that time, so went back and looked at sort of the history of the evolution of trying to get a program off the ground originally. So from spring of 24 through fall of 24, back on March 7th of 24, we had a presentation in the drive from the Danvers YMCA about some programming that they might be able to do here. April of 24, the work was continuing, and we invited the Y to come to the May meeting to discuss pricing and other questions. May of 24, that all happened. The Y gave a presentation to the committee regarding a before and after school program could be held at Proctor School. They noted the cost of the program, the days of the week. They noted the possibility of an open house at Proctor to answer any parent questions. June of 24, the principal at Proctor at the time talked about that we had an open house. There were at least 10 students who had expressed interest. It was suggested that the committee reach out to the community and spread the word that there was opportunity available for this type of childcare. August 24, we thanked the members of the Y on their work. We informed the committee that the Y held an open house with a lot of literature for parents. There seemed to be minimal interest at that time. The Y did not think there would be enough families to run a program that year, and they sort of put everything on hold. And we would, look to work with other groups and organizations to see if something could come up. And so in 11 of 24, November of 24, informed the committee that the Y is on hold while the district looks at other options potentially for families. And so we did have further conversations with Tri-Town Council at the time. That's just a little bit of background for folks that might not have been here during that time frame. We did receive some communications from some of our family members around, hey, there may be interest this time again. We know we tried this once before and we didn't have that interest. And so when we got that feedback, we immediately, Adrian and I jumped on a call, and Steve as well, with Sue's, forgetting her last name.
Malik.
Thank you very much. And John Soames and others from the YMCA. And, the good news was this wasn't new information. Like, we had tried this once before, so it wasn't like we had to crank up the whole machine all over again, so to speak. And so there was interest on the Y, on the Y end, in order for us to look at this. We knew that we would need a staff member potentially to staff it. The Y couldn't necessarily send a staff member over, but they could get it organized for us, send the equipment over, and any of the items that we might need. So you can see that flyer in there. It says 2627 Proctor Y Club flyer. And this was something that Suze and John had put together. And you can see it's available for 3-day or 5-day. Proctor Before School program provides children grades 4 through 6 with a safe, well-supervised environment before school starts. 7 o'clock start, drop off between 7 and 7:15. I think that was part of the piece last time. Some of the feedback was, I think it was like a 7:30 start, and that was almost a little bit too late back in 24 for some families. And so I would say overall, productive conversation with the YMCA folks. Adrian, I think, is very much open to us pursuing this as well. It'd be great if we could provide this opportunity to our families. It checks all the boxes that Steve needs to have checked on his end. And you're feeling confident, Adrian, from a staffing perspective, that we would have somebody that could staff that for us?
Yep, one person has met with me, and she's very excited about the idea of it.
And, you know, I think right now, it's a smaller amount of families. It might be something that grows, but we just want to bring it back to the committee like we did before. You know, the committee was very supportive last time. That's why we spent, you know, months looking at it and seeing if it would work, and it just at the very end, it didn't work. The numbers didn't work for the Y because there weren't enough people who were interested in doing it. And so I think what we'd like to do with the blessing of the committee is to put this out there again, put it out to families, see if we can get, you know, the interest that we would need in order to run it. Have parents spread the word for us as well. That would be very, very helpful. And then we could go from there. Adrian, if you want to add anything that I may have missed from any of the conversations we had with anybody?
No, I think it was just, you know, fortunately the work had already been done, so it's not like we had to rewrite everything. But,
Right.
You know, I'm pretty hopeful. It seems like there's a lot more people that are really looking forward to this. So I think it'd be fantastic, and you know, I really hope it gets going because I think it'd be a great community builder and help.
Yeah. And Steve, anything on your end?
I absolutely agree. Y does a great job.
Yeah.
And I think it would be an excellent addition here. There just needs to be the interest on the family side.
So just looking for some feedback from the committee. Certainly, again, we've had good support for it in the past from the committee, but just want to bring it to you guys again tonight just to kind of make sure we're still all holding hands on this. And if so, we'll get a notice out and we'll start advertising it through the newsletters and things like that. So happy to take any questions or feedback from the committee.
I mean, it makes sense. It works at Stewart Station. It should work
Right.
here.
Yeah.
What time does Stewart Station? Does it also start at 7?
7.
It also starts at 7. My only question is, so, you know, if we have 13 kids, is one staff member enough?
Yeah, I forget what their numbers are. If we get more, we'll obviously have to do some work on that. That'd be a good problem to have.
It would, yeah.
In that regard. So I think as of right now, there was a comfort level with 13 and 1. I don't think that was something that was.
No, I think it should be fine. I mean, the person that has interest has many years' experience. So.
And where would it occur? In the gym, library? Like what space? Has the space been determined or no?
No, I mean, I would say probably the cafeteria,
Yeah.
just because we have band in the morning. Like we have band, jazz in the gym already.
Yeah.
So I think it would make sense just to be in the cafeteria.
And that's where we do it at Cole. We have a before school program at Boxford, and it's in the town. That's is where it starts. So all things being equal.
Any other questions?
Do you know the number that they need? Is it 30?
I'd have to go back to Sue's. You mean in terms of get it to run? Yeah, I felt that she was feeling pretty good about it with like the 13 number.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah. Last time, I think it was single digits. There was a lot of interest in.
And that didn't materialize.
It didn't
is my-
materialize.
is my-
They were trying to do both morning and afternoon also.
Correct.
That's true too.
Right. Now it's just a focus on the morning. That's a good
Yeah.
point, Carol. Right.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah.
I will need it in 2 years.
All right, great. So we will, Adrian, let you and I connect tomorrow. I'll reach out to Suze and John, and we'll figure out what next steps can look like, and then we can talk to families about, you know, getting this flyer out, see what the numbers look like, see if we need more than one person. But we'll continue to evolve this if that's sounds like it's good with everybody else.
Will you tell me when I can post it on?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yep. Let me just make a note of that. Why follow up? Great, thank you guys for that. All right, and then in the drive for tonight, Matt has his annual student services update. So in the drive, you'll see a PDF. It reads Topsfield 2025, 2026. And it's okay with the chair to turn it over to Matt to take us through that.
Yep.
Great. All right, so tonight I'm going to walk you through just kind of the updated numbers that we do on a yearly basis. It's really going to talk about some of the funding formulas that go into special education, the eligibility numbers, and then I incorporated this year a little bit about our programming because there's been a lot of questions over the past couple of months about where we're at with some of our programming, so we'll get to that point. If you go to the first slide, that's really just you know, an overview narrative of the department and the belief of doing everything we can for the department, professional development, and supports for students to allow students to grow no matter what their disability type or level of need is. Slide 3, again, it's just what I talked about. We're going to talk about federal and state funding, student eligibility and service delivery placements, and then a little bit about programmatic information. So if you click to the first slide that talks about funding formulas, this is not something new, but on a yearly basis, I like to bring the numbers forward so you can see it. So what I first talk about is the entitlement grants that we get on a yearly basis. So that's the 240 grant that we typically see in the budget as a line item, and the 262 grant is the early childhood equivalent of that. You can see here, and I'll read them out for people in the audience. So the 240 grant this year in Topsfield was a little over $144,000, and the early childhood grant is at $3,500. That was actually the 240 grant came in a couple $1,000s less this year. The formula, again, if I could explain it to you 100%, I don't know if anybody can. Typically, it grows by a couple $1,000s, so all I can think of is that something with our eligibility numbers that we reported to the state at one point might have been a few kids less, and that's how it came out. You can see there, this is found directly in the budget that Steve pulls together and on a yearly basis, and it really goes directly towards offsetting IEP services for students on IEPs, occupational therapy, speech, assistive technology, basically anything that is required. It is a federal grant. This is federal funding.
Is that money stable as far as we know?
So far, so I was able to go to a workshop a couple of weeks ago that focused on kind of Washington and what's going on, and a lot of the conversation was less about the funding and more about the structures and the oversight. And one of the things that came up quite a bit was that the oversight changes are from more of the federal oversight back to state oversight. So there's less. The Department of Justice and the Department of OCR are just there's far fewer people, and the ability for them to oversee complaints that are going to those offices is just not what it used to be. And it was what I went to was run by attorneys, and what they were saying is you used to be able to even reach out to those departments to get an advisory, and those are not being returned at all now. So the biggest takeaway from that workshop was less about cutting of funding and more about a changing of the oversight from the federal level to the state level. The next slide is about circuit breaker, and again, we talk a lot about this. Circuit breaker is a reimbursement from the state that is for students who education is a higher cost. As a refresher, circuit breaker reimburses up to 75% of cost above four times foundation budget, which is typically around $51,000 now. It's right around that area. So, it's when foundation goes up, if it's not relative to the tuitions, then our circuit breaker is down a little bit. You can see here last year, these are last year's numbers, because it's circuit breaker is claimed at the end of the school year for the following year. Last year, our net claim was just around $80,000 for a reimbursement of just around $60,000. And then the third funding formula that we do not talk a lot about because it is not in our budget. This is money that goes directly to the town's budget is Medicaid. Medicaid reimbursement is for services that we provide through the schools that would be otherwise provided through Medicaid or Mass Health. So we, on a yearly basis, send out a form to every student's families on an IEP. We do not know who is eligible for this. They have to return the form and send it back to us. If they do that, then we can cross-reference with the IEP, and if they're getting a service that would otherwise be paid for through this mechanism, we do claim it. You can see here last year in Topsfield, the reimbursement was $10,812.
You need to pause for a minute for
Yep.
folks who are in the audience. It's a little clunky, but it's behind. It's behind you.
Oh, there you go.
A little clunky, but it's behind you.
Is the money going straight to the town consistent across all three towns?
The money goes to the town in all three
Okay.
towns. Yes. Yep. All right, and so the second part I like to bring to you on a yearly basis is eligibility and service delivery. And when I talk about service delivery, it's really about our full inclusion, partial inclusion, and substantially separate. Remembering that full inclusion means a student on an IEP is spending 80% or more of their time in a general education classroom. These numbers have remained fairly stable over the years. Topsfield has always had the highest percentage of full inclusion. It is down a little, and the partial inclusion is up a little. I would attribute that to the development of some of the programs that we've been talking about and just making sure that we're meeting the needs of all the students. When you develop programs that have different service delivery models, these percentages will change. But as a note on the side here, across all 3 districts, if you pull together all of our inclusive practices, we are over 72% of IEP students are in full inclusion, and that's something to be proud of and to really make a note of. I will say, because we'll talk about it later, Middleton shows a higher substantially separate program. They have our most established programs. And so students actually from our other 2 towns will attend some of those programs in Middleton. That's why that substantially separate number has always been a little bit higher. All right, and then we go to specific Topsfield data around eligibility and percentages. This is always something we keep an eye on. State eligibility for special education right now is hovering around 21-ish%. You can see as a district, we're 23.4%. K through 6, we have 13, and let me remind you, this is data as of December 1st every year, because that's a reporting period for us. And I've been doing this for 10 years, so I want to make sure we just have apples to apples, so this is December 1st. 13 students on IEPs in the preschool, and then you can see 21% at Stewart School and 26% at Proctor School. I will say, if you do a comparison to our other towns, these numbers look a little bit different, and there is a significant difference with 3rd grade being at Stewart. So 3rd grade is a high referral eligibility grade, and so it is not surprising to me that Stewart would be at 21%, even if Fuller Meadow and Cole School are a little bit lower, because neither of those schools have 3rd grade. So that is a big piece of the puzzle. This is something that this is important data because we look at trends. We always have the conversations about, do we have the programs in place for our students? Do we have intervention for students in place before eligibility? But again, these are, I think, good numbers to revisit year over year to kind of keep the trending and have those conversations. The next slide, I used to put this slide in here every year, and then I took it out for several years. The reason why I took it out is because I had a little bit of a concern that it could identify, for some of our students with low incidence disabilities, I wanted to be cautious of not identifying. I feel good about the fact that this would not be identifying. You can see here that not every disability category is actually on this list that is in the regulations. The reason for that is either it's too low of a number that I didn't feel comfortable with, or we don't have students who fall into that category. This is our 2, we really have 3 categories that are, about in the same range with health disabilities. Health disabilities typically would categorize ADHD. Specific learning disabilities, again, a lot of specific learning disability in reading, which would commonly be dyslexia, and then communication, which would be a part of the puzzle there. Services from our speech and language pathologist. An important note on these, and I will try to think about whether we want to do this in the coming years, is that when the state moved to the new IEP last year, the requirement of writing a primary disability on the IEP went away. So if a student has multiple disabilities, the old IEP used to require you to write what is the primary disability, which would go into a chart like this, right? That's not a requirement anymore. So if a student has multiple disabilities, the team is not required to say, autism is the primary and communication is the secondary. They just write autism and communication. We still need to report, the state has not caught up with that, so we still need to report a primary disability to the state, which is what these numbers are. But I say it with caution, because if we're doing it at the local level where we don't have to kind of quote unquote choose a primary, these have to be taken with a little bit of a grain of salt. As with all this data, this is all trending data, so we'll see. But that was a big change in the new IEP. All right. The next slide really just, again, was just an interesting comparison. What to me this does, this slide, and I've talked to some of the coordinators about this and some other people about this. What this slide does to me is it may highlight exactly what I just said around categorizing the disability type, because if you look at communication, you see Boxford's at 10%, Middleton's at 7%, and then Topsfield at 22%. Those are numbers to look into, and one of the things I'm curious about is is it just a situation where state reporting was more for communication in Topsfield than it was in the other two towns? So maybe the kids have the similar disability percentages, but the way we're reporting it might be off a little bit. Or are we seeing more communication disabilities? Are we seeing a higher level of health in Topsfield? But then you can see, like, emotional disabilities, Boxford at 0.8%, Middleton at 12.3%, and Topsfield at 1.7%. So I think it's always good to kind of look across the tri-town. It gives us a sense of, if we're talking about cross-town programming and ensuring that we have all these programs, it's good to kind of have these comparisons, with keeping in mind that procedurally some things in decision-making can be a little bit different as well.
Ideally, would you want consistency across the 3 districts in terms of reporting, or is that a district by district?
I would like consistency around decision-making, right, and following regulations. I don't know if I don't, and you guys can talk to that too, I don't think I would rather see the exact same percentages across the board, because we all have different kids.
Right.
So to me, it's more about our procedures, it's our team process, it's the decision-making around that. This could give us some insight as we build programming and not replicating in the 3 towns. Like, I could use this and say, let's talk about whether or not we should build this program in one of the districts, because most of the students with this need are there, and then the other students can come over. So this is helpful data for that. All right, and then, and I know there's a lot, I'm going fast, so any questions, please jump in. So then the last part, I just wanted to go over, because we've been talking a lot about program development, I just wanted to touch on a few of our programs that we have across the tri-town. Always want to start with a foundation built on inclusion and partnership. That is what we're all about, fundamental belief. I thought this graph really gave a good sense of how we approach things, right, with the family partnership, the multidisciplinary team, evidence-based instruction, and then students at the core of everything that we do. If you go to the next one, it really reviews our collaborative team process. There will be, there's a referral and assessment. Team gets together, reviews that, including the parent, and then decisions are based on that data that's collected with all parties involved. Placement is never a sole decision. It's a collaborative, data-driven process designed to place the student on the best path for growth. I feel very strongly that we do a great job of that, and the teams really put the time, understand the process, understand working with the parents, understand the students. And then the next slide talks about what we do across the board. This is by far our biggest approach to service delivery, which is our baseline support, which is inclusion and other services. On the left side of this slide, you can see our inclusive model, which again is 80% of the time the student spends in the general ed classroom. Our co-teaching, especially in Topsfield, our co-teaching process and development has been exceptional over the years and sustainable over the years, and students really get a lot of support from that. And then the second main type of service would be what's considered on the IEP a C-grid service, or the student leaving the classroom to get to direct instruction from a special educator. Some students are in the inclusion model and get pull-out services as well. It doesn't have to be one or the other. But those are services that are foundational in all 6 of our buildings. Next slide is our programming for students with autism. You can see here that the foundational program components of our programming for students with autism include low student-to-teacher ratio, weekly BCBA, and speech and language consults. We take an ABA approach, and all of our staff in those programs are safety care trained. We do have programming for students with autism in all of our buildings. We have a very solid program here at Stewart. The program I do reference a lot, that is the long-standing program in the district for students with autism, is ECLC over at Fuller Meadow School. We at times have students from other towns attend that program. But again, we do have this programming and this level of programming for students in both of our schools here in Topsfield. The next one is our social emotional supports that we provide students. Again, this one is even more general, and just as a lower school and upper school, because it's either embedded in what we do on that first slide about inclusion services or pull-out services, but we do have students that require a little bit more support around social emotional and therapeutic supports, and we structure our teaching staff and programs around supporting them. That is present in both of our schools here in Topsfield. The next slide is very specific to Proctor School. That is our new language-based academy, the partnership that you've heard me talk about and us talk about with the North Shore Consortium. This is more of a self-contained program that has components to it that can be inclusion as well, but it is structured to support students in all academic areas that have language-based learning disabilities. You can see here it has expert staffing, therapeutic supports in specifically around speech and language, interdisciplinary team, and takes a very rule-based, multi-sensory approach to teaching. So this is the program that we have talked about over the past year and is up and running, and I think is doing well. I do think we have to have, and we will be having conversations about it being really, it says 4 to 5 because that's how it was developed, but I would say at this point it's 4 to 6 already.
Yeah, what happens in
Yeah,
the fifth
you're right.
graders?
It's 4 to 6 already, and then I would say, you know, we need to, it's gonna be tricky because third grade is at Stewart and not at Proctor, but I think the next conversation is how do we extend the continuum to third grade? And just to wrap it up, you know, I wanted to talk about this, again, I started with the goal, the student at the core of everything that we do. This is always our goal with any programming we do, skill acquisition and generalization, self-advocacy, learner independence, and then always making sure that they're transitioning into the right environment for them, whether it is, you know, sometimes students need more intensive support or less intensive support. The decision's always made by the team to have the student get the services that are gonna maximize their growth. And then just a thank you, I wanna, you know, thank the committee for all the support. I want to really thank the principals, the teachers, the related service providers, the behavior specialists, everybody, the instructional assistants. It really is just an amazing, amazing group of people that we have that have, you know, want to do professional development and just are amazing with working with every single kid that comes in front of them. So thank you to all our staff that work with our students.
Thank you. I have a few questions that, most of your questions, I'm assuming, but anyone else? You want to go first, Alyssa?
Sure, I'm trying to gather my thoughts. And I will channel my inner Candace if I can. The first, I guess, is more of a comment on the third grade being the bubble that we identify kids. I think the earlier identification, the better, particularly in specific learning disabilities. I think there's been a trend in Topsfield not to identify kids as early as they are identified in some other towns. And, you know, I think if we can, it's always better.
Yeah, so I would
how
say,
limited.
I would clarify and say, it's not it's more because third grade is here, so it's more kids in those numbers, but if you look, I also have the referral numbers that.
Because you
we
used to
in.
put them in by grade.
Right,
Yeah.
so I didn't put them in this year, but if you look at it, we actually, there is a shift. One, we have probably double the amount of preschool referrals as we've ever had. So there's that, but I think you would see, we've also collected a lot of data around the intervention model, the kind of our MTSS model, and where that is, where students are being supported with interventions, and then how and when that leads, if it does, to a referral.
Yeah.
So, yes, I think if you look at trending data and national data, you would see an increase at that age level, that third, fourth grade. For purposes of this, I would say it just throws off the numbers because there's more kids here. But I hear you. Yeah, I don't know.
I think you were talking more specifically around how the content in the curriculum changes at third grade from learning to read and reading to learn, and that there's that little bubble there because it's more that application and the knowledge base. But no, yeah, our early intervention is very strong.
Agreed.
I think we've been asking for a long time to have the MTSS data of like how long kids are in MTSS and not letting kids languish in MTSS, and we still haven't gotten that.
Yeah, can I add one piece to that? It's really interesting, and we actually have started talking about it at parent-teacher conferences and in public. I think the piece that's really interesting about our MTSS process is MTSS is tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, as you know, but the general ed tier is really specific to the classroom. So it can appear that your child is in RTI forever, but they're not, because we're in Topsfield and we have the resources and the staffing. So yes, sometimes they're in RTI because it's phonemic awareness, it's spelling, it's encoding, it's decoding, but they could have started with just the phonics piece and then ended in 3rd grade with needing the encoding piece. So they're moving through those pieces. And sometimes, especially as you saw the rise of our kids with health disabilities, it's really about size of group and less distraction. So we often say to parents when, yes, your child is qualifying for RTI, and they most likely would in most districts because of that small group support, because of the gen ed RTI.
My other, so I would, and I'm sure Candace is, like, we would like to see the data as a committee. I think Candace would say that. She has said that many, many times. And I think one of your big things, Adrian, was like MTSS. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so maybe if you have new ideas or doing something new, that would be great too. I thought we were going to hear about that this year. The other piece I may have lost because I didn't write it down. Is there any discussion around shifting away from ABA?
Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, in what regard?
You say ABA?
Yes. So ABA is the model that is being used for like the autism programs that you just said. It's on the slide, and it's like applied behavioral analysis. The BCBAs support that for a behavioral model. There's a lot of talk in the special education world and the psychology world about the damage that ABA can do to kids on the spectrum if they're being reinforced for certain kinds of behaviors, and the sense of agency that ABA takes away from the individual, the autistic person. So there's a lot of rethinking around ABA.
Are you specifically referring to like the trial piece of the ABA?
I think the whole lens through which ABA operates,
Yeah.
in terms of like how you see an autistic person.
Yeah, so I think Topsfield is ahead of the curve, if I can speak for that, Matt, unless you want to. And it's really around the staffing that we have, because we have behavior specialists and BCBAs. So our BCBA, we have specifically hired BCBAs that are trained in ABA, but also understand the behaviors, and exactly what you're talking about, because, right, trials don't make sense for kids in the real world, right? So when I first came to Steward, there were white footprints on all the sidewalks. So kids knew that they had to walk on the white footprints in order to not get hit by a bus or a car. That doesn't make sense in the real world. So that's like an example for people that don't know like what ABA is. It's kind of like if the trial works one-on-one with the BCBA, it might not work in the real world. So our BCBA currently, Caitlin Wang, is absolutely wonderful, and really specific around making sure that it's just like a gradual release. So I think, yeah, you would see, and I would love actually for you to come and even talk to Caitlin about it, you would see that it is an ABA theory based on where the student is and their access and their entry points, then it moves to the gradual release of general education through a behavior specialist, through the instructional assistants, and through the general ed staff.
I think we should be careful then about how we frame it on a slide as being ABA. That's like just from a,
Yeah,
like how I respond to it.
Yeah,
As a
I
piece
would
of
say,
feedback.
and I hear what you're saying. Sometimes on site, it's hard to convey exactly what that means, and that term and that approach does have a very specific, makes you think of a very specific approach. I would echo what Carol said, not only just here at Stewart and in Topsfield, but even our more intensive program over at Fuller. I think you can have conversations about ABA principles and approach without the very, very intensive, strict part of what people think of typically with ABA in trials, in discrete trials. So maybe there's a different way to incorporate that in. Absolutely.
Go for it. I might think something else.
No, so I just had a question. In our March meeting, we sort of talked about evaluating success and what success looks like for our students in sort of broad strokes. So, with the early language learning classroom, I'm sorry, not the early language, the language learning classroom, and how are we evaluating success in our special ed programming currently? Like, we're looking at just like screening data, or are we also getting feedback from parents and students and things like that? Although students are kind of hard to get from like the Steward level, but.
Well, I do, one of the main parts of it, what's been really nice, and I love the part of the new IEP, is that you actually have to talk to the student, no matter what age they are, and get kind of their input on, what they want to get out of the year and what it means to them. And so, some of it is actually really insightful for a certain age level. A lot of times in the years past, you didn't have a student participate in the IEP until they were 14 years old. So now it's all the way down to preschool to get their input. So that's really good. I would say, our main driver of looking at growth is always the individual student growth through the team process, and looking at the progress reports and the ability of the student to achieve the goals on their IEP. That being said, when we are looking at that, we can also pull together effective methods of programming and teaching. And so, what we will do sometimes is kind of pull that together of students with similar needs and disabilities, and look at the growth or, areas of improvement that need to be had, and really look at the teaching methods and the curriculum that we're using. So it's kind of from this individual student basis, then pulling that information out. But individual student growth is really at the heart of what the IEP is. That's why we write the individual goals. That's why we write the growth around, the progress reports around those goals. So, all students also participate in all of our screeners. They're part of the data days. They're part of all those conversations. So we did have a time when students, if they had a goal area in one of our screening areas, they didn't actually participate in the screeners. That's gone. We have all of our students, regardless of what their IEP status is, be part of the screener part and have those conversations. So we've kind of incorporated that in as well.
I have another question.
On slide 9, where it has the inclusive practices and
Yep.
substantially separate, are the out-of-district kids?
They are not.
Okay, they're just not included.
Right, this is in district programming. Yep. And I did not list on slide, well, if that was 9, then on slide 10, it initially had the number of students that were out of district. I did take that off. I didn't, feel like that was.
I had one more question, sorry.
Yeah.
So health is our largest percentage currently. And my understanding is, and this is not my area of expertise, I would defer to Alyssa or Candace on this, but my understanding is that like an ADHD diagnosis could sometimes like mask another coexisting disability. Have we found that students who sometimes fall into that health category also then have something else that we are maybe not missing because of the ADHD,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
a delayed diagnosis, if you will?
Yeah, sure. I don't know, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I don't think, yes, and I also don't think we're necessarily missing it. I think that they're being serviced in those areas also. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
So they might have ADHD and need a self-regulation goal,
Yeah.
right? And they might, or we would call it health, the medical world would call it ADHD. They might need executive functioning goal, and then they also might need a reading goal.
Right. So I guess my question
Yes.
is like, does the executive functioning ever mask the reading thing?
No, because, yes and no, because the testing that we do really teases all of that out. Right, so for the health disability, we do a rating scale and pieces of that. For the psychology piece, you'd look at the cognitive piece, you'd do the why for the reading and writing, then you'd look at their progress or lack of progress and their progress monitoring. But yeah, they coexist, and no matter what the disability, like, we're servicing based on their areas of need.
Yeah,
I think the other.
That's probably also where, sorry, I think that was a little bit of struggle I had with this slide, right? Because it I don't know if it fully accurately describes, like that 28% of students under health. It's hard to then say, well, actually, we're servicing, of the 28%, another, half of them have reading goals and all that.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell that story.
Yeah, I think the other piece is, like, oftentimes kids have areas of disability and they don't need specially designed instruction.
Right.
So that's another, like, I think, big learning piece for parents and guardians, right? Just because there's a named disability doesn't always mean that you need specially designed instruction or a 504.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, now it's Greenberg's time to shine, right? So we need to enter into a special public hearing. So I will make a motion to enter into public hearing for the proposed FY27 school budget.
Second.
This does not have to be a roll call, right? This can just be,
No.
okay, good.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are now in our special budget meeting.
So in the drive, Steve and I will take this one together. So FY27 proposed Topsfield budget, for those in the audience, it's up on the screen behind you. And so first slide is just the title slide. And then second slide, what I want to talk about is areas that we can partner as a committee with FinCom, with Select Board, with municipal government, as we work to try to improve funding for public education. So this document here, this was something that on February 27th, the North Shore Superintendent Roundtable, we presented this to the legislative delegation on the North Shore. We had a good turnout. This was up at Whittier Tech. And there were 4 columns that we dialed in on and really focused in on, as you can see there. One was around sustainable and equitable Chapter 70 funding. We're going to spend the most time there. One was around special education costs and stability as it relates to districts across the Commonwealth, but we were really dialing in on the North Shore. Transportation equity and capital needs. And then on the municipal side, this isn't something we often talk about on the public ed side, but it's called UGA, Unrestricted Government Aid. And we wanted to talk to the legislative delegation around that as well, because the UGA share of the state budget from FY07 has halved from a 4.8% to a 2.1%. And the funding has been stagnant. And what happens is if there's less money for UGA or municipal services, then what happens is there's less money for all of the other departments in town. And you can see the sort of cascading effect of how that can ultimately impact public education funding as well. So those are the 4 big areas that we spent time on. We did acknowledge some recent successes down at the bottom there with the legislative delegation. We appreciated the Universal Meals Program and the circuit breaker funding and some of the Chapter 70 supplemental support. But really what I want to dial in on is that first column about sustainable and equitable Chapter 70 funding. So Julie, if you wouldn't mind, go to that next slide. So there's a bill in front of the legislature right now. It's Mass Bill S-400, and this is the path to equitable education funding. And if you look at the slide from left to right, there is a special commission that was established to push this Bill S-400 through the legislative process. You can see in the middle there, early 25, that blue section, there was an initial review and the bill was referred to the Education Committee and a hearing was held. In September, the committee reported favorably on the bill and advanced to the Rules Committee. And then October 20th of 25, it's been recommended and quote unquote ought to pass, and it was referred to Senate Ways and Means. And the Senate recommended it to pass, and it was referred to the Senate Committee on Ways and Means. This hasn't passed just yet, but just spending a little bit more time on this, the Mass Senate Bill S-400, titled An Act to Ensure Adequate and Equitable Funding for Public Ed, is a major piece of legislation designed to refine and modernize how Massachusetts schools are funded following the initial rollout of what was called the Student Opportunity Act. The centerpiece is the creation of a special commission tasked with the comprehensive multi-year study of the state's school funding formula, which is otherwise known as Chapter 70. To investigate if the formula accurately requests the true cost of education in 2026, the commission is required to submit a final report with legislative recommendations by June 30 to 27. And they'll be looking at inflation caps, transportation costs, special education, rural and low enrollment districts. And the reason why Chapter 70 needs to be looked at is because it is broken in every sense of the word. If you go to that next slide, Julie, the outdated Chapter 70 formula, it creates a cycle of strain. If you look at that box in the upper left-hand corner, the formula is outdated. It leads to unfunded mandated costs, which leads to an unsustainable local burden, which leads to a reliance on tax overrides. And that tax override piece is something that we are familiar with in public education really across the entire Commonwealth, because the Prop 2.5 is a challenge, and then when you couple that with a broken funding formula of Chapter 70, that also creates a strain on school budgets. And so the hold harmless trap, which is the next slide, and this is where Chapter 70 is very broken. Over 70% of Massachusetts districts are classified as hold harmless, and I'll talk about that in a minute. We receive only the minimum Chapter 70 aid increase, which fails to keep pace with inflation, and when 70% of districts rely on a safety net provision just to tread water. As you can see, the formula is fundamentally broken. And so the way that hold harmless works, it guarantees that no district will receive less state aid than it received in the prior year. On the face, that sounds like a reasonable safeguard, but it's become a dominant mechanism by which Chapter 78 is distributed for the vast majority of districts. And here's how it works. When the Chapter 70 formula calculates a district's aid entitlement, if that calculated amount is lower than what the district received the year before due to declining enrollment, change in community income, or other frequently flawed formula factors, no one can actually explain the Chapter 70 formula to you, the district is quote-unquote held harmless at the prior year level, and it then receives a minimum per pupil aid increase, typically a modest dollar amount. And for us, that's $75 per student, right? And so that is not going to move and shake the budget at the elementary or at the K-12 level across the Commonwealth. And last year, they did bump it to $150, which is great, but $150 times about 650 kids, that doesn't add up to a whole lot of increase in financial aid coming into a district. And the fact that 70 to 80% of districts are now in that hold harmless, what we think might get the state's attention is that Boston just crawled into that hold harmless category. Like, so if Boston is getting $75 extra per student, like that is not going to cut the mustard, so to speak, in terms of that. So this Chapter 70 piece is a huge component, and if you're ever asked as a school committee member, like, you know, how can we hold hands with FinComs and select boards, like this idea of getting this bill S-400 passed so a Chapter 70 commission can review it, that is a big piece of the puzzle. And that next slide, Julie. As we talked about, when Chapter 70 is broken and you can't raise money beyond 2.5, this quote really resonates. You cannot pay your taxes with your house, right? People can say, like, this is great, the value of my house is increased, right? But you can't actually pay your taxes with the house. You have to actually pay the taxes with the income that you have. And so as overrides continue and as, you know, property values increase, you can see the strain that happens in local cities and towns as they try to navigate this. The other big area that I want to spend a little bit of time on is the Massachusetts Fair Share Amendment, otherwise known as the millionaire's tax. And the millionaire's tax was a 4% surtax on annual income exceeding $1 million. By constitutional mandate, these funds are split between public ed and transportation and supplement existing budgets. I think what's very important to know about the millionaire's tax is you don't need to be a millionaire to be subjected to the millionaire's tax. And what I mean by that is if you sold your house and you sell your house for more than $1 million, you have now entered the millionaire's tax endeavor here, where a 4% surtax would be applied. The challenge with the Fair Share Act is that if you look on the left-hand side, again, it's all supposed to go to transportation and public education, meaning early childhood, elementary, secondary, and then higher ed. On the left, it looks as though $1.7 billion was given to education, and you say, oh my goodness, how could our budgets be struggling if $1.7 billion was given to education? We'll unpack that a little bit more in a minute. And $712 million has been dedicated to the MBTA, regional transit, and fixing a massive maintenance backlog for bridges. If you just tap the slide one more time, Julie, and everybody else on their computer. So let's talk about this $1.7 billion that has been given to, let's say, quote-unquote, public education. If you go down the list there, free community college, $120 million. That doesn't impact us. K-12 Student Opportunity Act, $497 million. That doesn't impact us, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Universal school meals, thumbs up. That's great that we can provide breakfast and lunch for free to our families, so that's a nice addition. Doesn't really help our budget much, right? It helps families because they don't have to pay for lunch or breakfast. Early education and care, that really didn't impact us. Those were operational grants to keep daycare centers and preschools open. Higher ed infrastructure, $125 million going to fixing the UMass system. That's going to be a 10-year bond. And then $700 million to transportation. So when you look at that $1.7 billion, really the only impact to us here in Topsfield and in Boxford and Middleton is that $170 million for universal school meals. It did not really help us with our local budget. And so, again, the Mass Fair Share Amendment is a 4% surtax on annual income that exceeds $1 million. The piece that the Student Opportunity Act, the large majority of that money, that $497 million of the K through 12 Student Opportunity Act, went to large urban districts with high concentrations of poverty. These districts have the highest need under the updated foundation budget formula. So Boston, Springfield, Worcester, Lawrence, Lowell, Brockton, Lynn Revere, Chelsea, New Bedford. They got the majority of that $497 million. The money that came to us in Topsfield and Boxford and Middleton, of that $497 million was $30 per student. So again, you do the math on that, 650 kids times $30. So this looks like this massive investment in public education at the state level of $497 million. The majority of that money went to the cities and towns, and good for them, they need that funding, but something needs to be looked at. Steve and I took that $497 million the other day, and we said, okay, let's just divide it by 351. Even though there's not 351 school districts in the state, that's something like 280 school districts in the state. But if you divide that 497 by the 351, it was a little bit over $1 million per district, right? If you just sort of shared that equally. Imagine what we could do in Topsfield if we had $1 million extra in our budget. We wouldn't be asking for an override for many years, right? If you think of it from that perspective. So Senator Tarr is sort of all over this. He sees that public ed K through 12 is really not getting an equitable amount from this Massachusetts fair share endeavor or the millionaire's tax. And there's politics behind whether people agree with it or disagree with it. Don't want to get into that now, but it's here. It's something that is present in the state. And again, that's an area that I really think from a community level, if we can advocate for Chapter 70 to be looked at, and if we can be looked at the Fair Share Act and us getting a bigger piece of that pie, so to speak, because districts are really holding a lot of weight in terms of trying to balance the budget on the backs of, you know, what we do with property tax and what we do locally, and there's very little aid coming into us through Chapter 70 comparatively to other cities and towns, and there's very little aid coming into us through the Student Opportunity Act as well. So I just wanted to highlight those areas before Steve got into our budget process for this year as areas that I think, you know, become opportunities for us to advance conversations around how we can improve funding at the public K through 12 level. So with that, I'll turn it over to Steve to pick up with the budget process.
Thank you, Dr. Morrison. There will be a quiz on this after, so make sure you guys pay attention. Proposed budget. So when we talk about our operating budget, it is our fiscal plan to address the goals, the vision, the mission of the school committee, and support the educational programs and initiatives at the school level. The key components of the budget are personnel costs, professional development, consumables, professional development, excuse me, special education in-district, out-of-district special education, facilities, and transportation. Our revenue sources, the majority of it is local appropriation. And then we have support fiscal components from state and federal grants and revolving funds. Next slide, please. For the budget itself, I think a lot of credit goes to the school committee for the work that they have done, partnering with the finance committee and the select board to develop a fiscal plan that is responsible to educational needs, but also fiscally prudent. So again, that was a very collaborative and transparent process. And, you know, we talk about right-sizing, so we're pretty much remaining level for the most part. And we're definitely employing fiscal discipline with the methodology we used, using a guideline process versus the needs-based process of prior years. Next slide, please. To recap the budget. So with the budget, the guideline, the Finance Committee guideline was initially that 2.25% increase, yet we had to pull back the $202,000 associated with the educational curriculum, which really was a guideline of $75,581 or 0.6% increase. When we talk about the budget and the adjustments that have been made, including the pre-cuts in the guideline budget, with consumables, professional development, and regular day transportation, the net adjustments to the budget were $289,824. To close the gap, with the proposed budget and meeting the guideline. We are using $108,018 of alternate funding sources to meet our budget needs, and therefore that gives us a local appropriation of $12,614,497. Next slide, please. Again, so to review, you can see that our net increase over the approved FY '26 local appropriation or operating budget is $75,581, or 0.6%. Next slide. For every dollar that we spend in our local appropriation or our total operating budget, you'll see that almost 83 cents of every dollar is associated with personnel or salary costs. And you can go right down the line and see the rest of that information. Almost 5 cents for consumables, 3 cents for special ed out-of-district tuition expenses, 3 cents for transportation, utilities, 2 cents, so on and so forth. Next slide. Specifically on the revenue side, for the total operating budget, again, the local appropriation is about 95 cents of every dollar, so $12,614,497 will come from the local appropriation. That's what will be voted at the town meeting. Preschool tuition, we'll use $356,019. Circuit breaker, $226,439. Special education tuition, $78,310, and special ed IDEA, that's the 94-142 grant of $68,000. Next slide. So our next steps. For this evening, the school committee will vote, entertain a motion and vote for the $12,614,497, as that is the amount that the town will vote at the annual town meeting on May 5th. The annual town meeting again, May 5th, at the Masconomet Regional School Auditorium at 7 p.m. So, sir, unless there are questions from the audience or the committee, that is the overview of the proposed FY '27 budget.
Thank you, Mr. Greenberg. I got a few comments. I will just note, Dr. Borenson was talking about the Chapter 70 money. Currently, our district doesn't actually benefit from our Chapter 70 money. Their Chapter 70 money goes directly to the town. So money that is earmarked specifically for education does not impact our budget. Alyssa and I are working to try to rectify that. We would like to see, so the annual increase is not recognized usually until that budget's approved, which is usually July, which is after budget season has been completed. But we would like to see that when that money comes in January, we would like to see that dollar amount added to our base budget the following year. Did I summarize that correctly?
Yes, it would just mean that so currently the town allocates the increase in January to themselves as they are building their budget, and our budget number stays the same. So it would mean that the town kind of doesn't do that, doesn't take the increase for themselves in January and, saves it.
Yes.
We're working on it.
We're working on it. It's not going to be life-changing money, but any little bit helps. I'll also just again reemphasize that had the town allowed us to keep the $202,000 that was approved by the voters at the town meeting last year for our inter-reading curriculum in our budget, we probably would not be looking at an override for hopefully another year, maybe another 2.
A couple of years, yep.
Yep. When the finance committee asked us about next year, I said you can probably expect us to be coming for an override. So, 'cause that's just the nature of the beast. Also, thank you, Steve, for getting this budget to us even earlier than ever before. Thank you to Alyssa for going to all those FinCom meetings and building relationships and sitting through mind-numbing meetings at times. So thank you for everybody for their hard work on this budget, and I'm glad that we made guideline. I'm not happy that we had to make some cuts, but I'm satisfied with where we ended up. All right.
You'll make a motion.
What's that?
You're gonna make.
I can make a motion. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the FY27 local appropriation in the amount of $12,614,497.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Beautiful.
Thank you all.
And now I'll entertain a motion to exit out of public hearing for the proposed.
Make sure no one in the audience, just, so that question was asked.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
What are any questions?
Any questions from the public?
I forgot we're still in public hearing.
That's okay. All right, just making sure.
Thank you. Sorry. Don't want to steamroll the public. So I'll make a motion to exit out of public hearing for the proposed FY27 school budget. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, now I'm going to make a motion to enter into public hearing on school choice for 2026-27. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. So we have, we've historically not participated in school choice. The reimbursement rate's not great. We don't really have open seats. Is there anything else we need to add to this?
Yep. So hold on one second.
I'm sure there's something official we need to say.
We do. It's because I have to put in the, I just need to copy it over from Boxford, the policy, just so we can all look at it, and I just need to read it out loud. So organize, move, Topsfield. So just refresh your drive, please and thank you. And in there now should be a copy of the policy, which is JFBB. And this is just going to summarize what Andrew just said, but just so we can read it out loud. It is the policy of the school district not to admit non-resident students under the terms and conditions of the inter-district school choice law. The decision must be reaffirmed annually prior to June 1st by a vote of the school committee following a public hearing. In the event the school committee votes to participate, the following conditions would apply. We won't read those conditions because it is the recommendation of the school administration for the committee to continue to not participate in the inter-district school choice law. Reason, as Andrew just described, is the funds that come with that do not match the funds required to educate a child in the tri-town schools. And so we would just want to see if anyone in the public feels differently about whether or not we participate
Public's left
in the
anyway.
inter-district public
That's true.
school
You are a
choice-
resident of Topsfield.
school choice law, but again, it's a recommendation of the administration to the committee that we continue on the path, follow our policy, and not participate.
Public are good with that? All right, so I will make a motion that Topsfield Public Schools will not participate in the inter-district school choice for 2026-2027.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're done now?
Yes.
All right, I will make a motion to exit out of public hearing on school choice for 2026-27.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's exciting. All right, annual town report. So every year, we have to put together a report for the town that gets included in the big omnibus town report. I circulated this all to you earlier in the week. Any thoughts, feelings?
Well done.
Good job.
Well, it wasn't me, it was them. I just edit.
Well done.
Good job.
I mean, is there any benefit? And not that I want to make more work for anybody. I mean, these are all relatively, like, not to be kind of vanilla, right? But I mean, so is the town report that gets put together. Do we ever do on a, I don't know, 3-year basis, a deeper dive into, I guess it wouldn't be an annual report then, but it would be like a 5-year annual study of like where we're at on things and look at all those numbers? Or, I mean, time is limited. Their resources may be spent better in other places, but just something I was thinking as I was reading through this, and like, it'd be nice if every 5 years or so we had all the data that we had in like one place. Again, I think annually would be a bit of a stretch to do capacity-wise, but just something, again, on the heels of our March meeting where we were talking about having some historical data to look at and things like that. So
We can, if you and I want to unpack that a little bit more, Andrew.
yeah, I don't know exactly what that would look like or what, but yeah, it was a thought I had. Sam Calderon would like us to officially approve this, so I will make a motion to approve the 2025 report of the Elementary School Committee.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, I can now tell her that we successfully approved it. Our next meeting is May 7th.
Correct.
Just as a note, our June meeting has shifted from June 4th to June 3rd. And then anything in other?
No other, right? That's the June 3rd meeting, the June 3rd group. What's that? Yeah, that's right, for sure. Well, yeah, we don't know that yet.
The what?
Oh, perfect. So do we want to go?
Oh, no, it's a no. It's not a no, it's a maybe.
So
Yes.
we'll figure out time. So we
Yes.
may have to bump time.
Yes.
Yeah, so we can figure that
We
one
can
out.
figure that out.
Yep. Yeah, no, that was it.
Perfect. All right, I'll make a motion to accept bills and payroll as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
And then we have 2 meeting minutes, so from our March 5th and then our March 19th, which is nothing much. Any comments on any of those? All right, then I will make a motion to approve the March 5th, 2026 minutes of the Topsfield School Committee.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I'll make a motion to approve the March 19th, 2026 minutes of the Topsfield School Committee.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Beautiful. Any other business before this illustrious body? I'll take this as a no. So you want to make a motion to adjourn? I've been doing all the motions so far. I'm
Make
getting
a
tired.
motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Brendan. I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.